Hello everybody, welcome back. So in today's video I will be walking you through the process of creating DBT models in BigQuery, and in particular I will be showing you how to create incremental and snapshot models. Okay, so in the last video we went through the process of installing DBT core and integrating it with Google BigQuery. So if you have not watched that video, definitely take a look if you want to get set up on how to connect DBT to Google BigQuery. So what I will do is walk you through the process of creating DBT models, again in particular just incremental and snapshots, and how that materializes or creates the actual tables back in BigQuery. So I have gone ahead and created them for you so you don't have to watch me type. But let me just quickly, before I come back to the DBT models, let me show you what I have in my BigQuery dataset. So this was the dataset that we used last time to create our DBT connections to BigQuery. This one called DBT dataset right here. And I deleted the example models that we created last time because those were generic. And what I've done right now is I have created this table called students row in BigQuery. And the reason I do this is because really what DBT does is it gets your data once you have landed in your data warehouse or your database. So in this case, let's assume that this students row is our raw data that we have in BigQuery, and we want to transform this data to a final table that other people could use. So this is a very basic table, but in a big organization you may have a really big table. So the concepts will be pretty similar really. So I have this table. This is my raw data. I want to use DBT to transform this table and write it back either to the same data set or to another data set in this case. For you, it doesn't matter really, as long you can specify what is your destination data set. But in this video, we will be writing back our transform data to this same DBT dataset. But this is our starting point, the students row. So this is how our data look. We have a student records with these fields. So we have ID, age, first name, last name, major, and we are going to use DBT to transform this data and write our snapshots and our incremental models and write it back to this same dataset. So let's go back to DBT, and this is I'm in my Visual Studio Code. This is my code editor. You can use any other editor as long as it's able to write back to BigQuery. Doesn't matter. But for a very long time I've been using VS Code, and if you have not watched my previous videos, I have done some videos where I showed you how to even connect Visual Studio Code to Google Cloud Platform. So I do have a good number of videos if you want to go and check back. If you want to use a Visual Studio Code as your editor and writing your queries or a code while still integrating with Google Cloud Platform. There's a video for that, and I've put that in the description as well, so definitely take a look. So this is how our DBT project is structured. We have DBT core as our project, and inside here we have a number of folders. So we have analysis logs. So this is where our logs go when we run our DBT macros. These are for reusable functions. So if you have a function that you want to reuse in your downstream models, then you can put them right here. Models, this is where your transformation queries go to. So again, in DBT world, models really is nothing but SQL select statements that you use to transform your source data. So you just do your CTS here or the queries that transform your data, and then the name of the base the name of the model if you don't specify how the alias for this, it's going to be created like this. If you saw in the last video, we never changed anything, and the models were created the way you specified the name. So for example, for student base, if we don't alias this, it's going to be created as student base in our target table. The same thing with this prepare, depending on the materialization. So I'll show you that in a minute, what I mean by materialization and aliasing. But again, models really is where your transformation queries sit. And then when you come to seeds, seeds is where your static files or CSV files live. So usually we use these seeds to put data that don't really change that much. So if you have CSV files that you want to use in your models or your queries that don't change that much, then you can put it here. Usually most of the time it's things like addresses, zip codes, things that don't change that much. You put them here if you want to refer them later in your downstream models. And then snapshots, this is where you are slowly changing dimensions go to. So if you have data that slowly changes over time and you want to track the history, then you can write a snapshot model that tracks that data so that you know whenever a field changes and you have a recent or an updated record in particular field, then in a DBT, this is where it's taken care of snapshots. In other if in other databases, this does not come out of the box, like DBT makes it so easy. But if you want to write a slowly changing dimension type 2 or type 1, type 3, whichever one, in other databases or in SQL in general, you have to write a really huge query to take care of that. But DBT does it for you. You just configure it and set it up, and it's going to do it for you without much struggle. So I'll show you that in a minute as well. And then we have your target. Target is where your compiled queries go to. So remember, the models for DBT are written in a select statement, but also change templating as well. So if you were to copy a DBT model that's not compiled directly to a traditional SQL editor, it's not going to run because there is change templating in there. But what DBT does is, once you run your model, it's going to compile it and translate it into SQL. So for example, and I will show you later actually what I mean by that, the compiled code. And this here, this is where if you have tests that you want to carry out in your models, you put them here. So this is just a general structure for the DBT project. So for us, we are going to mostly focus on models and snapshots for this video, and I will show you how the compiled code will look like in the target folder right here. Okay. So let's go inside models, and what I've done is, so you don't again have to watch me type, I have set it up for you. So I'll just walk you through this setup. So the first thing I did was create my students schema.yaml file, and right here what you will see is the configurations, and generally it is just YAML configuration. So at the top you have the version for the DBT that you'll be using, and here is the source. So I have put here the source, and this is really pointing to the source data. So in this case, I am going to be using my DBT dataset as the source schema, and the table that I'm pointing to is this students row, and I'm naming this source as students. This is going to be particularly useful in our downstream models when we are calling for this source. So we will be calling the name of the source as students, and then the table that we will be getting is students row. Okay. And then you can define some of these other additional fields. For example, columns that I want to check is for ID. So I know for sure that in my source table I do have a field called ID, and I can show you that in our table here we have ID, and this ID is unique across. So this is like a primary ID really. In BigQuery we don't really have that because it's data warehouse, but yeah, this field represents a unique ID. So that's what I'm defining right here, that for this field, it is for this ID, I want to make sure that this is always not null, and this is actually not null like this. Not null, and it is also unique. And you can run tests against this before you run your models, just to make sure that this is always unique. Okay, so this is whenever you run tests, you can run it against this field, and you can also specify a number of other columns that you want to test. And mostly in DBT, I think these are at least the popular ones that you can test against. Make sure that the field is not null or unique. Just make sure that's unique as well. So these are the two tests that there are some other tests as well, but for this case, I'm going to test only for these two. And then down here, when I come to my models, I will specify the name of the model and how I want it to be materialized. That model, how to be and if there are any tests, I will put it as well. So for this case, this students prepared is one of the model, and what I'm doing here is really I'm writing a CTE, or a common table expression, that is doing basic transformations to my source data. So here, for example, the only thing I'm doing here is just updating the field names. So I'm changing ID to student ID, age to student age, F name to first name, L name to last name, and major stays the same. And look at here what I was talking about earlier. So in DBT, you have defined your source data. So here we're just calling it or referring to it. So I'm saying, and this is Chinja templating. So I'm saying get all of this, transform all of these records, and I want to get the table called students row from students, which is my source data name, which is right here. Right here. So students is the name of our source, but the actual table we're getting is called students row, and I'm getting that, I'm specifying that right here. Okay. And make sure that there's a space here. Sometimes it fails if you don't put a space there. And then I'm basically just selecting everything right here. So it is just going to change the names for this and return the records or the results. And what I'm doing here for this prepared model is I am materializing it as ephemeral. So what this means is this is not going to be created in the destination dataset or schema, but it will be used, it will be translated as a CTE. So it's like a table, common table expression. So really it's just going to do some transformation, and you can call it or you can refer to it. So if you want to read more about the materializations, the documentation is there for materializations in DBT. So we have this materialization, and materialization is really how you want DBT to translate and persist your models in your data warehouse. So we have a table. This is going to be created as a table. A field will be created as a field. Incremental will only be, it's behind the hood is really a table, but it's going to hold only your changed or updated data. Ephemeral is what we just used right now, and this is not going to persist the data. Materialized view will materialize it as a view. So if you go to ephemeral, this is basically these are not directly pulled into your database. Instead, DBT will interpolate the code from this model into dependent models as common table expression. So it's not going to materialize. You'll just be referring to it later, because you're just doing some basic transformation, and it's pretty lightweight, and you can reuse it later. So that is the ephemeral model, and a student space is this one here. So this is doing incremental logic. So what I will be doing in this model really is I want from my source data, whenever anything changes, I want only the changed data to be reflected here. So I don't want all the historical data. I only want the most recent one. And this is good if you have a lot of historical data or data that changes over time, but you're just interested with the updated records. You don't want to process all of the historical data. So this improves your performance, so that you don't have to process all the historical records. You're just getting the most recent ones. And this configuration here for unique, this is going to be very, very important for us. And actually, to show that, I'm going to delete this block right now. I'm going to remove it and put it somewhere here. Okay, I'll put it right here. And I will save this, and I will show you the significance of that block just in a minute. And then this is incremental macro is going to indicate to this model that you just want to get the most recent records. You are materializing this as incremental, and you want only to get the most recent records from your data, most recent or updated. So if you look at it here, it's using this ref instead of source. This is also a very important function in DBT. We use this when we want to refer to other models. So if you see this model here, this is my snapshot model, which is right here, snapshots. So what I'm doing here is I am getting, because now this snapshot is going to be holding my historical records. So what I'm doing in this base model is saying, from my historical records, I want to get only new or changed records. And in my historical snapshot table, and I will be showing you again when we run this snapshot. When we run this snapshot model, it's going to create additional fields in the table. One of those fields is DBT2. And this DBT2, whenever it's null, that means that this record is active. Or it is the most recent one. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to my historical table, and I'm saying only give me the changed or updated records, and that is going to go into my student space. Okay, and here in my configuration I am also saying that I want student ID to be materialized, to be unique and also not null. And just to finish up with this, I am saying that this table should be, or this model should be materialized as incremental, which means it's only going to be holding updated or new records, and the name is going to be students updated. So when we run this model in BigQuery, it's going to be created as students underscore updated. Okay, now let's go to our snapshots, because in this page we are referring to snapshots. So what's inside our snapshot model? So snapshot model is a model in DBT that stores or that tracks the changes in your source data over time, and it fashions it. So whenever a field is updated, it's going to fashion it and update that record. So so that you always retire the old ones, and then you keep the new ones updated. So this is what's happening here. Just quickly from the top, we when we create snapshots, we have to use this a snapshot command and the name of the snapshot table. So this students.hist is the name of will be the name of the table when we create it. And again, this is going to be created as a table in our destination target schema, and this is the name of it. So you will not see student snapshots as the name, but when you run this, it's going to create a table called students.hist. So that is the name of the snapshot. And then there's configurations here, and the target schema that we want to write this to again is DBT dataset, and this is an important field, the unique key. This is so that DBT knows which field to track over time. So this student ID should be truly unique, because DBT is going to look at this field and say, okay, this field, something has changed in this field, I want to update it. And also we have another field here called strategy, or configure strategy, and also this tells DBT what strategy or how do you want to track the changes in your source data, so that the history table can be updated. So there are two strategies for this. There is one called timestamp. Timestamp, you can use a field, a timestamp field. So say for example in our source data we had a field called updated at, and that field updates every time there are changes in your source data. Then if we know for sure that that field is tracks the updates without issues, then we can use it here and change this to timestamp, and for the column we put updated at. And the configuration for that, you can see them here. So for example, for timestamp, you can use it, you can define it like this. So you can put the name for your target, strategy timestamp, unique key, you put the ID for that, and then the updated at field. For this case, I don't have any timestamp in my data, so I will use the check strategy like this, the check strategy. And I'm saying just check all the fields, and if one or more, or if any of these field changes, then you retire and update the field. So you create basically a new column, retire the old one, and update it. And then down here I'm just saying, yeah, I want you to refer to students prepared model, and that will be our source. So again, note here that we are using ref, not source. And the reason for this is because students prepared is a model. So we use ref when we are referencing other models, and we use source when we are basically going directly to the source. So this is student prepared model, and I am getting all of these records. I'm getting all of these changes. So look at here, it's going to be created, and the new fields will be this one: student ID, student age, first name, and all of that. That's why here we are using student ID instead of ID, because we are referring to this model where we have made some transformations. So now our new fields will be these fields: student age, first name, last name. So in your snapshot model, when this is materialized, the field names will not be ID, age, F name, last name. It will be these new ones. Okay. So that is snapshots for you. And what else have I not covered in this? Yeah, I think that is pretty much it for snapshots. Again, you use a snapshot at the beginning and then end it with snapshots. So let's go ahead and run this model, and let's see what happens. Okay. So actually, let me just show you the lineage for this. So we have our source data, and what's going to happen is when running, right, we will run this, and then after this we run our snapshot model, and the reason we are running our snapshot model first is because our snapshot model is referring to this prepared that is getting our source data. So I will say probably we just run snapshot first, and then after that we run our base model. Okay. So snapshot will create historical tables getting the data from prepared, and then the base will just get the data from historical data, and it's going to materialize it. Okay. So I think we have covered enough of that. So now it's time to run this. So I'm going ahead and let's run this. So remember, you have to be inside your project to run this. And let's do one thing first. So you can always do DBT debug to make sure that your connection is good. Your DBT connection to your data warehouse is good. So you do DBT debug. For that, it's going to run and will tell you if all is good. So we can see here that all of the checks have passed. So this means that we are good. Now, the first thing that we will do is run DBT snapshot model. So we'll run DBT snapshot, select, and in this case I don't have like other snapshots. I only have one snapshot, so I'm just going. You can run DBT snapshot, or you can just select. I'm just going to select the snapshot here in this case because, you know, I just want to show you how to do that. But you can just run snapshot and it's going to be fine. The only downside with snapshot is if you have a lot of snapshots, it's going to run everything. So I'm just used to selecting what I want to run to avoid running a bunch of other snapshots. So you say DBT snapshot and then you select the name of the snapshot. Now if you put here these student snapshots like this, students snapshots, I don't think this is going to run. But let's see. Most likely this is going to fail, that I did not find this snapshot. But this is just me learning with you. Oh well, it ran. Okay, well and good. You can do this student snapshot, but you can also do DBT snapshots and students hist, this one as well, and this one will still run. I had not tried this other one, so that was a learning opportunity for me. So you can do the second one and it's also still going to run. Okay, so this should also run fine. So it's going to create our students hist in this dataset, DBT dataset. See, it completed successfully. So it looks like any of this should be good for you if you specify either the model name, and you don't have to do the .SQL, just student snapshots is good, or the name of the snapshot. So what we expect to see is that in our target schema DBT dataset, we should see a table called students hist created. So if you see here, we only have students row, but if we refresh it, we should see another table right here, students hist created. And look at this now. So we have the new transformed fields names. So student ID, student age, first name, last name, major, just like we did right here. Okay. And what's happening also is that additional other fields have been created: DBT, SED, ID, DBT updated at, DBT valid from, and DBT valid. So if you go to this data and inspect it, you will see that the very first time DBT is run, it's going to create all of this as the most recent records, and DBT valid to is going to be null. So this is now the next time we update any record here, it's going to be retired, the old one is going to be retired, and the date here is going to be updated, and the new one will be null. And I will show you that in a minute. Okay, so this is going to be the historical table that we create out of this. So just notice all of these fields DBT automatically creates for us. Okay, so that's our history table. Now let's go ahead and run our paste table, and again our paste table is getting from history table, and it is only selecting for these field names, not all of the other ones, and getting only where DBT valid to is null. So when we run this the very first time, we should expect to see 5 records with the same records like this, now excluding all of these other ones. So to do that, you do DBT run, and we do select students paste. Okay. Again, you can just do DBT run, and it's only going to run the models here and materialize them. So again, what we expect to see here is that this DBT pace, here we have specified that this should be created as students updated, and it's going to be incremental table. So students table is what we expect to see in our destination target schema. So let's go ahead and do that. So it is going to go through the configurations and everything, and if all is good, it's going to run this model and create it successfully created. Now remember, we never had to specify a DDL for this. DBT is automatically doing it by itself, taking care of the DDLs and all of those boilerplate codes. We are not doing any of that. DBT is doing it by itself. We instruct it what to do, it goes ahead and does it. Okay. So if we go here now, we should be able to see a new table called student updated if we refresh this. There we go, right here, students updated. So that is our new table holding our new and updated records. So this is our field names, and we have 5 records right here, which is the same thing that we had here. And from history table, it's just filtering for where DBT valid to is null. Puts them right here. All right. So now we have established that our history table has been created fine, and we also have our incremental table also working fine. Now let's make some updates to our raw data and see what happens with this updated with our history table when we run our snapshot the second time after the source or raw table is updated, because that's usually what happens. Your source data changes, you want to track those changes in downstream models. So you want to capture those ones and expire things as they should be. So what I will do is I will update one of these records. So we have our student row here. So we have all of these records. Now, assuming Tom or this student with ID number 1 changes their mind and they want to switch their measures to a different measure. So let's say this guy gets tired of chemistry and they want to change to something else. So let's say they want to change to computer science. So now let's update that. So we will update this table, and we are saying we want to change this measure to computer science. Okay. So we want to change the measure for student ID number 1 to computer science. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let's change it. And so if you look at our student row now, this has been updated real time, and instead of chemistry, this student is now a switch to computer science. So what happens now when we run our model schema? What we expect to see is that when we run our snapshot, what we expect to see is this student, this will be retired, chemistry will be retired, and the new updated record should indicate that it's computer science. So let's see how that happens in real time. So what we'll do is, because we have already set our models and everything, all we have to do is just run the snapshot again. So we'll go ahead and run DBT snapshots. Okay. So just run DBT snapshot and select your model. It is going to run through it, see what records have changed, and then update it. And the way it's going to update it is through the check strategy. It's going to check all of the columns, and we know for sure that one of the columns there has changed, and it has changed from chemistry to computer science. So that means that that record is going to be retired and the new one is going to be reflected. Okay, so this one has run. So when we go back here in our DBT and refresh it, we should be able to see that record show up right there. See? So the old one was computer science, like that, and now the newest one is sorry, the old one was chemistry. So this has been retired, and this was valid from this date to this date. So you can see the timestamp, and I'm doing this right now. So the date does not, the actual date does not change, it's just the time that has changed. And the new record that we have is computer science. So this is the most recent one now. Okay, so this is now your SED2 logic. So this is how it works. So you can basically implement your type 2 in DBT, and it's going to handle. So remember, we did this in less than 10 minutes. If you had to write a type 2 logic in SQL, you will probably spend more than a day or even a week if you don't know how the logic works. But DBT does it for you. You don't have to worry about it. Just set it up and run it, and it works like magic. So this is a magician. DBT the magician. Alright, so let's go ahead and run our paste table now. So remember, we had a config block up there that we had specified the student ID, but now we are running without that config block. What does that mean? Okay, so I will explain to you what that means. If we don't have the config block inside our incremental logic to specify which unique key to update, it is going to append. It is just going to append all of the records in our table, in our incremental table. So that means that when we run the next time, this student's row, right, we had about 5 records, right? So the next time it's going to run, it is going back again, it's going to go back again to history, and then because incremental is append in nature, it's append in nature if you don't specify the key to update. So what's going to do is it's going to go back again here and query for all of the records where DBT valid to is null, and then append here. It's going to append to these records here. So that means that the next time we run this paste model or incremental, we will probably double these records. So we'll have another 5, or if the DBT, yeah, in this case, yes, we will have another 5 most likely, because our history table has how many? So it has 6 records and 5 of them are nulls. So it's going to update all of the nulls to updated table. And most of the time that's not what you need. But let's just go ahead and run it and see if that's what's going to happen without the config block. So we will go ahead and run dbt student space. So remember, student space is going to history, getting where valid to is null. And this is append only in your destination. So it's basically going to query this table and then get where dbt is to is null, and then dbt valid to is null, and then update the records. So it's finished. And if we check this now, dbt students, if we refresh it, we have 10 records. And if we preview it, you will see that you have the old ones and the new ones, right? You have the old ones and the new ones. This is not what you really need. I don't think this is a desired behavior that you want, because now you have duplicates here. So to mitigate that, what you want to do is, in your paste model, up right here before you select, you want to put the config block where you specify what your unique key is, right here, like that, and save. So what it's going to do is, it's going to look into this student ID field, and whenever there is a change, it's going to update in real time. It's just going to update that field. It's not going to append the rest of the other fields. So the rest of the other fields have not changed. It's only this particular student ID that has changed from one particular field to the other. So then it's only going to update that without having to append. Okay, so to demonstrate that, what I will do is I will delete this table from here. I will delete this table, and what I will do is I will run again that model to just bring us what we currently have. So what it's going to do is now it's going to go to history table and then get us where DBT valid to see. So we will have a student ID number 1 now having computer science in our paste table. Then we'll update it back and see what happens. Alright, so it's finished. We go back here. Students updated. We have 5 records and the student ID number 1 now is computer science. Now let's update this computer science to something else. I don't know. Let's say this guy changes their mind, says computer science is too hard for me, too hard for life, I cannot handle it. Let me just switch back to anthropology. I don't know what anthropology does, but anthropology, right? So they want to switch back to anthropology, and they want to try their luck there if anthropology will make it for them. So let's go ahead and update it. Anthropology. So now what we want to do is run our snapshot since our source data has changed. Go ahead and run our snapshot. So what we'll expect again is now instead of computer science will be retired and the new field will be anthropology. That's going to be the updated field, anthropology. And then we should have 2 previous DBT valid to records for that. So it's going to track all of the history again. And I will show you how neat that is. Alright, so that has finished running. We go here, we refresh it again. And then we go to our history table. And as you can see here, now we have 7 records. And if we look at student ID number 1, so which is on top right here, you can see now that we have retired computer science, and previously we had retired chemistry. So we retired chemistry, went to computer science. Now we have retired computer science, and our new field or major is anthropology. Now when we run our paste, because we have this config block right here, when we run our incremental model, we should only see 5 records, and Tom, or a student ID number 1 in this case, will have anthropology. Now instead of us, if we don't include this config block, then we will have 15 because it's always going to append. All right, so let's check that quickly. Let's run our paste model and see what happens. Okay, so it has completed, and if we go here to students updated, we had here again, before I refresh this, look at student ID number 1, computer science. But this guy has realized computer science is too hard for him, and he wants to switch over to anthropology. So let's see if this is now reflected here instead of append. Right, so we refresh it, and there you go. This has been updated real time, and our overall records are still 5. Only the ID number 2 is the one that has changed in real time, and the new field that we have right now is anthropology. So this is super useful, having incremental logic and also having your unique ID right here. This is going to be very helpful. Otherwise, your incremental model will be messed up, and you will have a bunch of appends with duplicate data that you don't necessarily need. Alright guys, So that is incremental logic in DBT, and it is basically doing all the work for you. Now the last thing I wanted to show you is the target schema. So this is where our compiled queries go to. So if you go to student base, this is the compiled DBT code. So it is basically getting it from, instead of that changer template that we have in our base model here, instead of this changer, it is the actual SQL, and you can actually get this and even run it in your BigQuery dataset or a BigQuery warehouse. So you can run this and it should be able to run fine. Okay, see, it's running well. So this is your compiled SQL. So if you want to get the actual compiled code that you can run that does not have the changer, you go to target and you get your compiled code. The same thing with here. This was the CTE that we had here. Instead of having this changer, it is translated well and it is getting it from our raw data. And you can still copy this and run it here without a problem. Alright, so this is very useful also, this target where you have your compile. So DBT has done it for you, translated it and made it very easy for you. Okay, so that is the target schema and how you get the compiled code. And the last one, I just quickly want to show you how to run the DBT tests. So here in our model, we specified that in our student space, this student ID should be not null or and it should be also unique. So if we run DBT tests, I think it is tests or a test. Yeah, I think it's tests. No, it's maybe test. DBT test. Yeah. Yes, so it's DBT test. So you run DBT test and it's going to scan through all of your configurations and see what tests you specified. So like for example, in your source data here, in our source data, we specified that these students in student row, this ID should be not null and unique. So it's going to go here. As you can see here, it started from our source, not null student ID row, and that one passed, and then it went to student space and it was checking for unique student ID and not null, and both of them passed successfully. So this is how you run your tests, and in this case, if there's a problem anywhere here, it's going to throw an error here for you. Alright, so that is how you run your tests, and I know this was a very comprehensive and long kind of video, but still at a high level. I hope you were able to follow it. If you were struggling anywhere along this video, definitely you can rewatch it and go back to it. But yeah, this is what I had for you today. I just wanted to show you how to create these models and how you go about creating your snapshots and incremental. And in this demo, I have showed you that. I hope that was helpful. Please you give thumbs up to this video and let me know in the comment section if there's anything I missed or I might have said it the wrong way. Just let me know in the comment section what you think about this video, and definitely subscribe to this channel. I will be releasing more videos on DBT, on even Databricks. I will be making future videos on that. So there's a lot of topics that I will be covering moving forward. So definitely do subscribe to this channel if you want to stay updated. But again, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please share the channel, subscribe, and give thumbs up. Alright, guys, thank you very much. Bye bye. I will see you next time. Bye.